Cosatu's Special Central Executive Committee meeting last night took a decision to suspend its General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi. The suspension came after Vavi's sex scandal. Several affiliates want Vavi's scalp, while others, like NUMSA, want him to stay. Corruption Watch has publicly censored him. Now, Cosatu suspended its president, Tubile Ntola, for allowing Vavi to address its gathering in the Eastern Cape. Now, to take this story further, we are joined in studio by political analyst Ralph Mathekga. It's good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live, Ralph.
Thanks for having me.
Did this come as a surprise to you last night when the news came out?
Well, I'm not surprised because I think even for NUMSA, they've been trying by all means to make sure that the special CEC meeting doesn't take place. And I think they were aware of what is likely to happen when it takes place. And it's not a surprise. Something had to happen. There has to be an internal kind of a procedure regarding Mr. Vavi's transgression. And for me, this is a reasonable step that they've taken. And we know that this is happening amidst an environment where there is no trust among affiliates of Cosatu. But I think that if you look at the depth of what has happened and what Mr. Vavi has admitted to, and I think for me, over and above that, you have allegations about hiring of junior staff.
Yeah.
And procedurally, and we're talking about a labor union here, and procedure is at the center of a labor union. So certainly, I think it is a reasonable step. Cosatu need to look into that and pronounce itself as to how it stands when it comes to Mr. Vavi's transgressions.
Yeah. Could this decision have been worse? I mean, what you're putting on the table here, I suppose, a suspension. Vavi should be happy he just got suspended, if I'm reading into what you're saying correctly.
It could have been worse. Actually, they could have just, they have enough evidence given what he has admitted to, what he had actually acknowledged that had happened between him and the junior staff. They have enough evidence to issue even the most adverse sanction, which could have been an outright dismissal. But I think that as a matter of procedure, they've suspended him. I believe that they're going to look into the conditions and also weigh in on how he has carried himself since the story has broken, also consider all circumstances that have led to that. And I think that they've given him sufficient opportunity to make his case.
Yeah.
They could have just said that given what you have done, given what you have admitted to, and also the hiring of a junior employee, and procedurally, possibly, they could have just said to him that you have to go. Because we're talking about a trade union whose job is to regulate the labor relations. And at the center of this as well, it's unprocedural hiring of a member.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, we've also seen the suspension of Cosatu's president. Is this basically another sign of the war against Vavi and the forces at play here?
Well, I think that the issues that are at play at Cosatu are bigger than Mr. Vavi.
Yeah.
The way in which things look like you have deep rifts within the federation, and the way in which it appears is the affiliates seems to be carrying themselves separately, individually, about this, pronouncing themselves individually, instead of seeing a coherent voice from Cosatu national office bearers or the national leadership of the union. So I could say that if you look at it closely, it has caused deep divisions. There were divisions before this has happened, but this has just given an opportunity for those who were gunning against him to really voice and take a step closer towards getting rid of him.
Because that was my next question to you, is that this must run deeper than just the sex scandal, because, you know, there are issues at play here. There's been talk of this division for a long time now, and it's now just playing out. And I imagine we're going to see a lot more happening.
Certainly it is playing out, and my view is 19 years or almost 20 years into democracy, you have a trade union that has had a relationship with the governing party. A lot has changed in South Africa, and then it is up to the trade union. It is incumbent upon the trade union to think, the federation to think about its position and its relationship with the governing party, whether Cosatu need to have a voice outside the tripartite alliance, and to what extent should Cosatu pronounce itself outside the tripartite alliance, and also the space that continues to exist within the tripartite alliance as to whether Cosatu need to push further for much more space when it comes to policy influence within the tripartite alliance. Those are things that will happen in wherever you put it. It can be in another country. There certainly has to be the realignment of forces in the relationship between the biggest federation and government in South Africa.
Now, I mean, let's take our minds back to Monday. NUMSA members came out guns blazing, accusing Duma Dlamini, who of course is the Cosatu president, of factionalism and all of these accusations towards him. Do you think that they'll continue to fight for Vavi, or do you think this is the end of the fight for him?
At some point, they have to realize that Mr. Vavi has recently become a liability to their cause. Because as much as they want a much stronger federation when it comes to how the federation evaluates policies of the ANC, we know that there are rifts, but they have to sit down and think as to whether is Mr. Vavi a horse worth betting on, continuing on this, or they have to let him go and find someone else who can take the cause further. Quite unfortunate about this issue is that as much as we know Mr. Vavi has taken quite a strong stance against corruption, and he has actually made Cosatu look like much more a forceful federation. The question is whether has Cosatu become Mr. Vavi, or should Cosatu think beyond him? And also the affiliates, NUMSA on the other hand. I believe that they can pull an individual on one side who can be able to push the struggle that Mr. Vavi has identified with going further. They have to evaluate and consider to what extent has the man become a liability towards their cause.
You know, just finally, before I let you go, I mean, we talk about a meeting that went on for close on 10 hours, if not more than 10 hours. What were they discussing? I mean, if the facts were on the table, he admitted to having sexual relations with the lady. He admitted to the fact that she was hired in a non-professional manner. What was up for discussion? This has to be a key, that there is so much more at play than just the sex scandal. I
would imagine that the first half of the meeting, they might have spend a lot of time discussing what had to be on the agenda of that meeting, because we know that going into that meeting, NUMSA did not feel like the meeting has to happen. NUMSA did not feel that the issue was such an extraordinary issue that it deserves a special meeting. And I think that they've deliberated a lot on whether this issue has to be on the agenda. And because they knew, had it been on the agenda, they agreed that, suppose they agreed that it has to be on the agenda, the policies of Cosatu when it comes to relationship among staff members and senior members should be quite clear. And even if they don't have a policy, clearly speaking, the position should be quite clear about such kind of a transgression. So I think they might have discussed that, maybe even deeper issues.
I think a lot more deeper issues. Quickly, the end or the beginning of Vavi?
I think it's the beginning.
This is the beginning?
Of the end.
Okay, you got me there. The beginning of the end. All right, thank you very much. Ralph Mathekga, who's a political analyst, talking to us about the suspension of the General Secretary of Cosatu, Zwelinzima Vavi.